right into it. Hank, break it down to us. I mean, what are the two fears? What are the two basic fears? Because I'm learning something new. I didn't know this myself.
Well, it's I think based on what I have read or heard, there are two fears that the basic fears: fear of falling and fear of loud noises, and everything else in between are things that we have either learned or been exposed to because of other people's ignorance.
Hmm.
Okay.
That is interesting.
Now, and again, I may be a little callous in calling in categorizing it such as that. Um, and again, this is based on a study done in the 1960s. Isn't that crazy?
So that's interesting. So you said it's a fear of falling
Yeah, and loud noises.
and a fear of loud noises.
Yeah. Now, again, people will put other things in since then and say it's fear of this, a fear of that, a fear of this, a fear, but they're just run, based on a lot of research. But as we got older, then we have a fear of failure. And there are those with fear of failure. There's also this thing called fear of success,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, there is.
And if you remember when you were dating and you saw that PYT on across the room, you had a fear of rejection. And and based on the program that we've got now, the wholesaling program that we've got people who are afraid of, it says selling, but I think of making phone calls.
I'm thinking it's probably some kind of fear of rejection.
Well, that too, but they're afraid of no, which is a form of rejection, I guess. Okay.
So I want to say this though real quick. So
Hmm.
basically, innately, if a person is born with fear, it is
Hmm.
only those two fears that they are born with. All
That's
other
based on
fears,
some that again. That's based on research. Okay.
all other fears are learned behavior.
Yeah. Yes, I would say yes. Learned.
Learned
Okay.
behavior. Now I'm gonna write this guy Hank and see if he's willing to come on to the podcast. But
Okay.
this is a book that I recently purchased. I encourage
Hmm.
everyone else to buy it as well. The book is called Start.
Hmm.
This is the title. The title is called Start. Punch fear in the face, escape average, and do work that matters. And I'm gonna give you guys a quick little overview of what it has. Just a few sentences. Says Wall Street Journal best-selling author John Acuff reveals the steps to getting unstuck and back onto the path of being awesome. Over the last 100 years, the road to success for most everyone has been
Hmm.
divided into predictable stages. But
Hmm.
three things have changed the path of success. Boomers are realizing that a lot of the things they were promised aren't going to materialize.
True
And they
that.
have started second and in some cases third careers.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now I'm going to read within the flap. Like I said, I have the book here with me physically. It says, "No one aims for average. No one sets out for status quo. No one longs for ordinary. But one day you wake up and ask yourself, how did I get here? You wonder if
Yeah.
there's a way to be more awesome.
Hmm.
And how can you be more awesome more often? A way to punch fear in the face, escape average, and do work that matters. There is, and it's not even that complicated. Since the dawn of time, ever wildly successful life every wildly successful life has gone through the same five stages. They used to be tied to your age. So he gives an example. He was saying in the 20s, a person would go through the learning stage. In the 30s, they would go through the editing stage. In the 40s, they would go through the mastering stage.
Hmm.
In the 50s, they would go through a harvesting stage. And in the 60s, they would go through a guiding stage. And so he
Hmm.
says, but the great news is it's no longer about when you were born. It's about when you decide to live. You don't have to be in your 20s to learn, and you don't
That's
have to
right.
be in your 50s to harvest. You simply just have to start.
That's wow. That conjures up a lot of contradictions in my brain, man. And let me see if I can explain. Because some people will hear what you just said, and they will etch the time frames in their mind, and if they don't hit certain gates at certain times in their lives, they immediately think, one, that it doesn't work, or they're a failure. And if they succeed in certain areas, or come to certain realizations that are before the time frames that you set, they may think that they are special or very unique, and they very well could be. But let's see if I can do this. I grew up at a time where in the countryside there was no electricity, no hot and cold running water, no TV, no telephones, no libraries, no this, that, and the other. So I didn't know that a lot of things existed. So I may have been behind the typical phases of success, awareness, blah blah, this, that, and the other. And then somewhere along the line, I had a thirst for knowledge. I was exposed to. So where I may have been lagging in the first or second grade, by the 12th grade, I was truly excelling. I don't know whether I'm making any sense to folks. So
No, you're making perfect sense.
what I'm getting at is that because of our environment, our surroundings, we may not reach those certain areas, those certain points. People are working hard and they're making $7.35 an hour. Okay. There it's not that they don't have the ability to make more. It's the idea that their circumstances, the road that they're on doesn't provide exits to those things that will make them more successful.
Boy. But wait a second, Hank.
Yes, sir.
If the road that someone is on does
Hmm.
not provide them to the destination that they deserve, what
Hmm.
can they do?
For some, they don't think they have to do. They don't think that they have any choice, so they keep doing what they're doing. But for some, they will, at the first opportunity, some will get off at an exit, regardless, and then try to either backtrack to find something. They'll pull off. And yesteryear, we would go into a service station and we pull out a map. But now with GPS, we push in a new address, a new town. It recalibrates and it helps us to get from point A to point B.
Mm.
And you asked that question, and it's fascinating. After driving from Indianapolis, Indiana, to Farmville, Virginia, the first few times I went to AAA, and it mapped out a route that I followed, page by page by page. And then I started to get a map that would take me from Indianapolis to Virginia. And I learned routes. I didn't have to use the map anymore. I didn't have to go to AAA anymore. I just knew how to get there. And then I was talking to someone and they said, "Well, Hank, do you realize the fact that you can, man?" Because they were two from Virginia. They said, "Well, I go to Virginia through Dayton, Ohio." And I'm going like, "Dayton?" I said, "Man, you're crazy. You got to go down through Cincinnati and go down through Louisville, Kentucky." And I said, "Oh, no. Oh, no. Man, you need to put in the GPS." So I didn't have one. So I bought a GPS system, and surely it talked to me all the way to Virginia. What am I saying? I'm saying that sometimes we may not be exposed to certain things, but once we're exposed to certain things, we have a choice to embrace or not to embrace.
Right.
Okay? And then the question is, why? Here's the piece. Why If I didn't need a GPS, why would I get one? And point is that people who bought a GPS to go from north side of Indianapolis to downtown, okay? I bought a GPS to get from Indianapolis to Virginia and back. And the point I'm making is sometimes people like technology, they like new gadgets, and they just delve into new gadgets. They get new apps, they get all of this other stuff, and eventually their brains are now in overload. In fact, here is something that I thought was powerful, and man, you would make me do that. I can't find it now. Oh, here it is. Here it is. This is a teaching moment. And it has to do with what are you willing to give up in order to have what you want. It says, our mind is a giant blender. It's obsessive. It blends our thoughts that once were solid, turning them into a puree.
Mm.
By stressing and overthinking, our minds blends until the thought itself loses its meaning. It always analyzes, worries, and tries to predict the future. It always wants more. It always sees obstacles first, though. And it's like, okay, this is crazy. But then it says, no matter how long it might take you to find your bliss, never settle until you do. The truth is, you are not going, you're not giving up anything precious when you go after your happiness. So I say that to say we gotta start, but we need to do a little bit of listening and learning. I think on the front end, or learning and listening on the front end, or do a little bit of research on the front end to know our why. What is the why for most of us? And that why to me is a goal.
Mm.
Okay. So with exposure, nobody in my family had ever gone to college. And for those who had gone into the military, they only stayed 2 years. So opportunities for me were different than opportunities for my mom and dad and uncles and aunts and cousins and all that other stuff. So I was constantly, again, that thirst for knowledge. I was always seizing opportunity. You presented an opportunity. I've said that a couple times. I'm one of those individuals that I'm a boomer. And I'm proud of it. Many boomers have given up doing anything, and they watch the TV and they sit back and they just hobnob, and it's like, okay, like, all right, but they're okay. But I'm blessed that because of my association with you, I'm constantly learning. I'm thinking about possibilities. And I try to introduce my 26-year-old son and my 34-year-old daughter into with possibilities, what ifs. And I say what ifs only because for most of us, the things that we want in life are outside of our comfort zone that we really want. And we fool ourselves by saying, well, I'm okay. Hey man, how you doing, man? I'm good. I'm okay, man. But the things that we really want are outside of our comfort zone. So then the question is, how do we get from where we are to where we want to be? And we talk about changing. And people say, oh, that's so nebulous. Okay. I want you to fold your arms. Now, fold them the other way. Okay. The other way is not comfortable for you. But if you do it enough, eventually that will become comfortable. So there are things that we do. Either we have to trick our minds, or our minds will trick us, because there's something always going through there. And we were talking earlier that because there's so much going on, you have a way to sort of settle yourself to basically regroup. You remember that part of that conversation this morning?
Absolutely, absolutely. For me to settle things praise and worship is vital. Period.
Okay. Okay.
For me, I'm not saying everyone has to do it, all that stuff, but for me, like that's vital. For others, it could, like you said, we're talking, it could be meditation. It could be meditation. For some people, it could be to center themselves.
Mhm.
Some people, it could be exercise.
Yep. I used to do that too.
Some people, they really enjoy getting their endorphins up, their heart rate going, and that in itself is almost therapeutic, and it allows them to clear their mind. But every human being is unique and different, and every human being, because of the uniqueness and differentness that we have, something different.
And the priorities that we place on life. There are some who like to take a nap. Hey man, I need to take a power nap, 15, 20 minutes or
Power
whatever.
naps, yeah.
Yeah, so again, whatever it takes to rejuvenate you, that's you, and it's okay. No one should call, man, you're crazy. Man, you're different. You're this. Because we're quick to put labels when somebody does or says or looks differently than we make that bad. Okay? Just makes it bad, which is unfortunate. And if we're not careful, because people make us feel bad, we eventually think that bad is normal. So then we want to put everybody else that we meet who are different, we want them to feel bad, because misery loves company.
Mhm.
And this talks about our family and friends. For most of us who have relationship with our family and friends, we're constantly trying to measure up. Okay, we're trying to be what our family thinks we should be, and we're trying to honor and respect them. But then with friends, sometimes we are competing with them rather than nurturing and growing and helping one another to be better. Because this
Mhm.
competition says, well, shoot, man, but man, look, I'm not going to help Leland get from where he wants to be. I'm going to do whatever I can to sabotage him, because I always want to be on the top rung. Well,
Mhm.
hell, if it's a 16-foot ladder and if you're on the 15th rung, then hell, I'm on the 14th. I'm okay. I'm higher than being on the ground. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah, some people are just weird. I mean, so let's talk about that. So, for example, something that really irritates me is the the person that wants to do any and all things themselves,
Hmm.
and the person that wants to get all the credit for doing it themselves.
It's called
One of,
ego.
one of the reasons why, huh? What'd you say?
It's ego.
It's ego. One of the reasons why, like, I really could care less about Michael Jordan, and is that the ego is like, it's ridiculous. Okay, so, but there are some people that like play into that. They want you to think that they were the water boy, they were the coach, they inbounded the ball to themselves, they got the rebound, they gave the assist, they made the shot, they negotiated the contract,
Yep.
they negotiated the brand, and it's like, dude, stop. Because it doesn't matter how cool or good you think you are, everyone needs everyone.
Hmm. Hmm.
For example, if it wasn't for that teacher who taught you how to read or write,
Hush now.
or taught you arithmetic,
You didn't teach
you wouldn't
yourself.
be where you are.
You didn't teach yourself. Yeah.
If it wasn't for, that police officer or that crossing guard who didn't teach you how to across the street, you'd be dead. So there are so many pieces to that puzzle of quote unquote success. How dare someone think that they did it all themselves? That's ridiculous. Somebody taught you how to wipe your butt.
I hope you learn real good.
Yeah, and so, like, to think that, like, that is ridiculous to me. That is just ridiculous, and it shows. In me, it shows immaturity, and it shows a lack of wisdom to think that only one person does it. Real quick, because I know we're got like 2 minutes. Here's the thing: I watched this show called Adam Ruins Everything. So I think it's like my favorite show right now. When I get a chance to watch it, they're like, I watched the animation. It's like a 20-minute segment, and it just talks about falses within history. And one of the falses was about Copernicus. Do you know Copernicus?
Yeah, I remember reading about
Okay.
Copernicus. Yes.
Right now you are?
No, I said I can remember reading about it.
Reading. Okay.
I haven't done it in, it's been a few years about Copernicus.
So people have labeled Copernicus the father of whatever, helio whatever, which just means that the universe revolves around the sun. And supposedly at some point in time, people thought that the universe revolved around Earth. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this is that wasn't even Copernicus, that wasn't even his theory. Copernicus took the theory from a few Arabian scientists at that time who already had proven those things by doing astronomy. And so all he did was take the learning of someone else and put his face towards it. And we now coin him as the father of the helio, blah, blah, which just means that the ability that we all know that we revolve around the sun. Here's what I'm getting at. A lot of things in history are done this way. I was talking to there's a gentleman that Hank and I know, and I've introduced this guy to Hank multiple times, and we were talking about inventions a couple of days ago, and I showed the gentleman that there's different inventions, and he was shocked to know that many of those inventions were made by people that they didn't give credit to.
They look like us.
I told him,
they look like. Call it what it is. Come on now.
Okay, I'll be more specific. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna find this because it's sad, it's comical, but it just proves like the ignorance of things. Like, for example, Tesla or Elon Musk. People will know Elon Musk as quote unquote the person who made electric vehicles. Newsflash, he didn't.
No, he did not.
So there's a guy who is deceased now. His name was Lonnie Johnson. He had the invention for electric vehicles, and there are other people who had electric vehicles as well. Well, what happens in the United States is when your patent runs out, anyone has the ability to basically pick up your patent and repurpose it and use it for themselves. Okay, so when that patent expired, Elon Musk bought the rights to the patent, and then just repackaged it for Tesla. That's why we have Tesla. That's why we have the type of electric engines that we have today. And as the Tesla patent is running out, that Tesla is now licensing that same technology to its competition. That's why you're getting electrical vehicles for other manufacturers. All right. But what will happen is that people will think that electrical vehicles were invented by Musk, and they were not. They weren't. And again, no one does everything themselves. Everyone is learned. Like we're all on the planet together, so we're all learning from each other. And here's the thing I wanted to share real quick. And this is in feel free to fact check this. All right, Granville T. Woods. All right, Granville T. Woods. Here we go. Granville T. Woods was known as the Black Edison. In 1882, he patented the telegraphone, a combination of the telephone and the telegraph. Woods later sold this invention to the American Bell Telephone Company. In 1887, he invented the synchronous multiplex railway telegraph. This device made it easier for messages to be sent to and from moving trains and railway stations. Now listen, the guy, I'll call him, he's a friend of mine. So the friend that I was with, we're having coffee at Starbucks, and he was like, "Man, I didn't know that." He said, I was told that Alexander Graham invented the telephone. I'm like, my God, he's much older than me, and I'm like, man, you need to read a book because I said, listen, many of the inventions that you think were invented by the person who had the company, they didn't do those things. They normally either stole them a lot of times or they bought them from someone else. I love Apple computers. I had to let people know, like, listen, I know that the Apple computer ain't nothing more than a Chromebook because up until September 27th of 2022, Apple was licensing all of their computer chips from Intel. So if you went to Walmart and you bought a $60 Google Chrome book that had the Intel chip in it, which that's what they have in them, you were buying the same exact technology that I was spending $2,000 on for Apple computer. The only difference is this: Apple made the user experience easier. That was it. But guess what? They were using the technology of someone else.
Same technology.
It was just the marketing that was different.
Who knew?
So that's all I'm gonna say on that. So
well, and Leland, and I think awareness, and for some people, that information that you gave them, they just sort of kind of blew it off because their mindset said that somebody else did XYZ, and they will not do research and argue until the last dying breath that you align.
Yeah, because and a lot of times because it validates their own bias, makes them feel good. Like it gives them a
itty bitty minds.
In the itty bitty minds.
Yeah,
and not realizing that we all stand on the giants of others.
And I said, I don't care who gets the credit as long as we're able to get the job done.
We get the job done, and that's the thing that
Okay. Come join our world. We would love to have you to come spend some time with us. Sit around and drink coffee at Starbucks, figuratively, participate in a Zoom meeting to just see how together we can get from where we are to where we want to be.
That's right.
Okay.
So with that being said,